The laughter around the table died the moment my father spoke. "So, Emily," he said, voice low but sharp enough to slice through the air, "are you really planning to marry him?" Every conversation stopped. Forks froze midair. My mom's hand tightened around her wine glass, her lips pressed thin. I looked up from my plate, meeting my father's cold, calculating stare. "Yes," I said quietly, "I am." Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation. Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. The corner of his mouth twitched, somewhere between disgust and disbelief. "You're throwing your life away for a mechanic." He said the last word like it was poison. "We raised you to be better than this." I felt heat rush to my cheeks, but I kept my voice calm. Better than what? Loving someone who actually cares about me? Who treats me like a person, not a pawn in your business dinners? My mother's voice cracked like a whip. "Watch your tone, young lady." But I didn't stop. "You both care more about your image than my happiness." The entire family watched in silence. My cousins avoided my eyes. My uncle cleared his throat awkwardly. It was like watching a courtroom where I was already guilty. My father leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowing. "You think love will pay your bills? You think it'll get you invited to charity galas? You're a Collins, Emily. You were born for more than a life of grease and gasoline." Something inside me snapped. "You're right," I said, standing up, my chair scraping against the marble floor. "I am a Collins, but I'm done living by your definition of worth." The words hit harder than I expected. My father's face reddened. "If you walk out that door, you're no longer my daughter." My mom's voice trembled, but she didn't stop him. "If you choose that man, don't expect a single cent, Emily." I stared at them both. "Then keep your money. I don't want a life that costs me my soul." A hush fell over the table. You could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. Then my father said the words I'll never forget. "Pack your things. You're done here." I froze. My mom looked down, unable to meet my eyes. Nobody said a word. Not my cousins, not my uncle, not even my grandmother. So I laughed, a small, broken laugh, and whispered, "You'll regret this." As I turned to leave, my father called out, "Don't come crawling back when he ruins you." I didn't answer. I just walked out, tears burning my eyes. Ryan was waiting outside, leaning against his old pickup truck. The headlights painted him in soft gold. He saw my face, and his expression changed instantly. "What happened?" I took a shaky breath. "They kicked me out." He hesitated, like he couldn't believe it. "For choosing me?" I nodded. "For loving you." He stepped closer, taking off his jacket and draping it over my shoulders. "Then we'll start over," he said quietly. "From nothing. Together." I looked back one last time at the glowing windows of the house I used to call home. Shadows moved behind the curtains, my family, already pretending I didn't exist. But they'd remember me. They all would. The wind was sharp that night when we left my parents' mansion behind. The streetlights glowed dim against the fog, and my father's final words, "You're no longer my daughter," echoed in my head like a curse. Ryan didn't talk much as he drove. His pickup rattled and hummed like an old memory, but his hand stayed firm on the steering wheel, the kind of steadiness I'd never seen in anyone before. When he glanced over, I saw it in his eyes. Not pity, not fear, just quiet determination. We pulled up outside his place, a small apartment above a repair shop on the edge of town. The sign outside flickered. Carter Auto. The building wasn't much, peeling paint, cracked concrete, but there was something honest about it. Something real. Inside, the space smelled faintly of oil and metal, the floor creaked, and the heater clanked like it was protesting winter. I sat on the worn sofa, clutching my phone, waiting for a text that never came. My parents didn't even ask if I was safe. Ryan crouched beside me, voice soft. You don't have to stay if you're not ready for this life. I met his gaze, eyes wet but defiant. Ryan, I didn't choose you for your paycheck. I chose you because you make me feel seen. He exhaled slowly, almost smiling. Then we'll make it work, no matter what. That night, I lay awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling. It wasn't comfort I missed, it was the illusion of safety. But deep down I knew this uncertainty, this raw start, was the first time I'd ever truly been free. The next morning, I borrowed one of Ryan's old jackets and walked 2 miles to a cafe downtown. The manager looked me over, heels scuffed, hair messy, name still Emily Collins on my ID, and said, "You've never worked in service before, have you?" I smiled. "No, but I can learn fast." She sighed and handed me an apron. "You start now." That first day was chaos. Spilled coffee, wrong orders, impatient customers, but by closing time, I was smiling. Because for once, I'd earned every dollar myself. When I got home, Ryan was still in the garage, grease up to his elbows, working under a truck. The radio played softly, and the light from his workbench made him look like a man building a future with his bare hands. "How was it?" he asked, wiping sweat from his brow. "Hard," I said, "and kind of amazing." He grinned. That's how all good things start. Weeks turned into months. We fell into a rhythm. Coffee and work in the mornings, garage lights and late-night dinners after dark. The world stopped being about luxury and became about survival, and strangely, that made it beautiful. I helped Ryan with paperwork, customer calls, inventory. He had big dreams, bigger than his worn-out tools allowed. Sometimes, when money was tight, we'd eat canned soup and joke that we were fine dining Carter style. But what we lacked in comfort, we made up for in grit. One afternoon, a customer brought in a luxury SUV that wouldn't start. Turned out, he was a retired investor named Howard Lane. Ryan worked quietly while I served him coffee and chatted. He asked how long we'd been running the place, and when I told him it was just us two, his eyebrows lifted. "A 2-person team keeping a whole shop running? That's impressive," he said. Ryan laughed, embarrassed. "It's more her than me, sir." Howard watched Ryan fix the impossible, wiring, sensors, software, and his interest deepened. Before leaving, he handed Ryan his card. "Call me if you ever need investors. I like people who don't give up." After he left, I turned to Ryan, half joking, half in awe. "You realize who that was, right? Howard Lane. He built half the electric cars in this state." Ryan shrugged, a modest smile tugging at his lips. Guess we'll see if he meant it. 2 months later, he did. With Howard's help, Ryan opened a small workshop focused on electric vehicle conversions, turning old gas cars into eco-friendly machines. It was slow at first, but word spread fast. The local paper ran a piece titled "From Wrenches to Watts," the mechanic changing the game. I read it out loud while Ryan worked, and he laughed, shaking his head. "They make me sound smarter than I am." "You earned every word," I said, smiling. Our lives shifted, slowly but steadily. We moved into a modest house near the workshop. Business grew. The nights of canned soup became dinners at real tables. We still worked until our backs ached, but it was our dream now. Still, sometimes at night, when the city lights blinked outside our window, I'd think about my parents, how they threw me away like a disgrace. I wondered if they ever thought about me. They did. I just didn't know it yet. It happened one ordinary morning. I was answering emails at the kitchen table when my phone buzzed. The screen flashed with a name I hadn't seen in 2 years, Mom. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. My hands trembled as I answered. Hello. There was silence. Then her voice, soft but strained. Emily always saw the article. The one about Carter Dynamics. Is that him? I swallowed. Yes, that's Ryan. She hesitated. Your father wants to talk to you. I almost laughed. Now he does? Her voice cracked. He didn't know, Emily. None of us did. Please, just come home for dinner. We'll talk. I stared at the sunlight pouring through the window. Ryan came out of the garage, wiping his hands, smiling at me, and I realized something. The people who once called him nobody were now begging for a seat at his table. I ended the call with a calm, cold voice. Tell Dad I'll think about it. When Ryan asked what happened, I just smiled faintly. Looks like the family who kicked me out wants me back. He froze, then nodded slowly. And what do you want? I looked him straight in the eye. I want them to see what nothing built. When I agreed to that dinner, I told myself it wasn't about revenge. It was closure. But deep down, I'd be lying if I said I didn't want them to see me, to see what they'd thrown away. The night before, Ryan helped me pick out a simple black dress. Elegant but grounded. Nothing flashy, no diamonds, no designer labels. Just me, the woman they swore would never make it. Are you sure about this? He asked quietly. I met his eyes in the mirror. They wanted a show. I'll give them one they'll never forget. The Collins mansion looked smaller than I remembered, or maybe I'd just grown beyond it. The same fountain, the same perfectly trimmed hedges, the same hollow silence behind the doors. When the butler opened it, he froze for a moment, like he'd seen a ghost. Miss Collins. I smiled faintly. It's Mrs. Carter now. Inside, the dining room shimmered under chandeliers, just like the night they threw me out. Except this time, I wasn't trembling. I wasn't desperate. I was calm, cold, collected. My mother rose first, her pearls glinting under the light. Emily, she said, voice quivering between pride and guilt. You look wonderful. Thanks, I said, pulling out a chair. I learned to take care of myself after you both stopped trying. My father didn't look up right away. He sat stiff, jaw clenched, eyes dark with something I couldn't place, shame, maybe, or anger that his control was gone. After an awkward silence, he finally said, We saw the interview. You and your husband have done well. His name's Ryan, I said evenly. And yes, we've done all right. The company just expanded to 3 states. My mother tried to smile. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Your father and I cut her off, voice calm but sharp. You called him a mechanic, a disgrace. Said he wasn't good enough for me. Now you suddenly care? Her eyes flickered. We were worried about your future. I leaned forward. No, Mom. You were worried about your reputation. My father finally looked up, meeting my gaze. You don't understand how the world works, Emily. We wanted the best for you. I smiled, cold, steady. Then you should have trusted that I knew what was best for myself. He shifted, uncomfortable. You proved us wrong. That's what matters now. Let's move forward. Move forward. I repeated softly. You disowned me at a family dinner. Do you remember that, Dad? You told me I was no longer your daughter. You humiliated me in front of everyone. And now you want to pretend it never happened. The room went silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. My father sighed heavily, as if burdened by his own ego. We made mistakes, but we're still family. I felt my throat tighten, memories flashing, packing my suitcase while my mom watched without a word, walking down that long driveway while everyone stayed inside, crying in Ryan's arms while my entire world collapsed. Family? I said quietly. Family doesn't throw you out for loving someone decent. Family doesn't stay silent when you're broken. My mother's lip trembled. Emily, please. Your father, he's sorry. But I wasn't ready to let them off so easily. Sorry doesn't erase what you said. You didn't believe in me. You didn't believe in him. You only believe in power. My father clenched his fists, his pride visibly cracking. We didn't know he'd turn into a success story, all right? We thought. I laughed, interrupting him. That's it, isn't it? You only care now because he's worth something to you, not because I'm happy. He said nothing. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. You threw away your daughter for status. He built an empire with love. You wanted a son-in-law in a suit. Well, now he owns the suits your clients wear. My mother whispered, Emily, that's not fair. I met her gaze coldly. Neither was kicking me out. The butler entered quietly. Dinner is served. The smell of roasted salmon filled the room, but my appetite was gone. I picked up my fork, but my father spoke again. We'd like to invest in Carter Dynamics, he said carefully, watching me. It's a strong brand. I can help you grow it internationally. I froze mid-bite. Then I set my fork down and looked at him, disbelief mixing with something close to dark amusement. You're not serious. I am, he said. You're family. We should work together. For a long moment, I just stared at him. This man who once said I'd crawl back to him. Finally, I laughed softly. You want to invest in the company built by the man you called a mistake. He looked uncomfortable. It's business, Emily. No, I said quietly. It's desperation. His jaw tightened. You can't talk to me like that. I can, I said, standing slowly. Because I'm not your little girl anymore. I'm a woman who built everything you said I couldn't. He stood too, trying to regain control. You're letting pride ruin an opportunity. I looked him straight in the eye. No, Dad. You let pride ruin your family. I took my purse and stepped back. My mother reached for my hand. Emily, please, don't leave like this again. I looked at her with genuine sadness. I didn't leave, Mom. You pushed me away. I just learned how to stand on my own. Before walking out, I turned to both of them. Ryan wanted to come tonight. I told him not to, because he doesn't need to prove himself to anyone, least of all the people who never saw his worth. My father's face fell. My mother's eyes welled with tears. I paused at the door and said the words I'd been holding for 2 years. You once said I'd regret choosing him. Turns out, the only people who regret anything tonight are you. And then I walked out, calm, unshaken. The same doors that had once closed on me now opened with quiet grace. Outside, Ryan was waiting by the car, engine humming softly. When I got in, he didn't ask what happened. He just reached over, took my hand, and smiled. Ready to go home? I nodded, eyes glistening under the city lights. Yeah, let's go home. A week passed after that dinner. I thought they'd finally let it go. That silence was the only closure I'd get. But silence didn't last long. On a Friday morning, I was standing beside Ryan at the ribbon-cutting ceremony of Carter Dynamics' new headquarters. Cameras flashed. Reporters called our names. I could feel my pulse in my throat. This moment was everything we'd fought for. Ryan looked at me and whispered, "You okay?" I smiled. Perfect. The governor stepped forward to shake Ryan's hand. "Mr. Carter, your innovations creating jobs all across the state. You're changing the industry." Ryan laughed humbly. "I just fix things, sir. My wife believed we could build something worth fixing." The crowd clapped, and in that moment, under the golden light, cameras clicking, I saw them. Standing at the edge of the crowd, dressed in expensive clothes, looking out of place in a sea of hard-earned success. My parents. Their faces were pale, their eyes wide, not with pride, but disbelief. My father tried to smile when our eyes met, but it looked forced. My mother clutched her purse, nervous, almost trembling. After the ceremony, as reporters swarmed Ryan for interviews, they approached me. "Emily," my mother said softly, her voice cracking, "we've been trying to reach you. You never answered our calls." I looked at her calmly. I didn't think there was anything left to say. My father took a step closer. "Emily, we made mistakes. We were wrong about him. We were wrong about you." I crossed my arms, keeping my tone even. "You didn't just make a mistake. You made a choice. You chose your image over your daughter." He exhaled, guilt flickering behind his proud eyes. "We've lost everything, Emily. The business is gone. Our partners pulled out after seeing what you and Ryan built. They all want in with you now." I stared at him, silent. The irony hung in the air like smoke. "We need your help," he said finally, voice breaking. "I'm asking as your father." Those words used to hold power. Now they felt hollow. I looked at him, not with anger anymore, but something colder, clarity. "You once told me I'd crawl back to you, but life has a funny way of turning things around, doesn't it?" He dropped his gaze. My mother's eyes welled with tears. "Emily, pleased we miss you." For a moment, I wanted to say something comforting, but then I remembered the night they'd thrown me out, the humiliation, the fear, the way they watched without blinking. I shook my head. "You missed the control, not me." My father's lips parted. "Please, Emily, just talk to us." I smiled faintly. "You had your chance. Now I've got a life to get back to." Ryan joined me then, slipping an arm around my waist. "Everything all right?" he asked. I nodded. "Yeah, just letting go of old ghosts." He kissed my forehead gently. "Good. They don't deserve to haunt you." As we walked toward the car, I glanced back once more. My parents stood together, surrounded by everything they used to think mattered: money, image, status. And yet they looked empty. Meanwhile, the man they rejected was shaking hands with state officials, journalists praising his vision, employees calling him sir. And me, the daughter they disowned, I was finally free. Not because I'd proven them wrong, but because I no longer needed their approval to be right. As Ryan opened the car door, I looked up at him and said softly, "You remember the night you told me we'd build something they'd never forget?" He smiled. "Looks like we did." I slipped my hand into his, my heart steady, my soul lighter than it had been in years. The cameras flashed behind us one last time, but I didn't look back. Not anymore. The people who once said I'd regret choosing love were now the ones begging just to talk.